Imagine that you've just finished a piece of content and you're eager to get it out to the world, but it's going to take you at least 14 months to just polish it and make it fit for customer consumption. Would you think that that was a frustrating thing to happen? Well, today's film is Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and post-production on this film took 14 months. And the reason why? Because they merged together live action with animation. Do you remember this one, Pascal?
I do remember it very well indeed. I remember going to the UGC complex in Bordeaux with friends and family and having the time of my life completely. But I just say as well that I'm almost so proud that for the Two Geeks and Marketing podcast, we've chosen this film, because by now, if people don't appreciate how much we adore filmmaking and film production, they should get it, with this choice today.
Yeah, I went to see it in Lancaster, of all places. But obviously at the time, it was just a fabulous, fun movie. And yes, we absolutely marvelled at the way that they had managed to merge together animated cartoons and real people. Now, I think up until that point, probably when I was younger, I'd been to see the original Mary Poppins film, and there was another film called Bedknobs and Broomsticks as well, which merged animation with live action. But the genius of this film, and if you look at those other two that I mentioned, is that you could tell that the scenes where the cartoons and the live people were merged together were very static and one dimension and two-dimensional. Whereas in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, it was the cartoons were being, they were zooming round them, they were zooming in them, they were circling up and down, they were bouncing shadows of light over them. There's one amazing scene where there's a light bulb swinging in the background, and you can see the shadows going across the cartoon's face. And here's the thing, Pascal, and I didn't realise this at the time, but this was one of the last animated films that was made where every single frame of the cartoons were individually hand-drawn and painted. That's why it took them 14 months.
And indeed, to that extent, that was this movie won 3 Oscars for obviously the best editing, the best sound effects, and the best kind of special effects. But there was also a special commendation for the animation team.
Yeah, I mean, it's just almost beyond comprehension, because now pretty much every animated film is done by computer. So I guess you could say it's a lot easier. I mean, it's still incredibly sophisticated, but imagine they had to draw every single frame of each character in that film, and every second of the film would have had 24 frames. So each of those 24 frames had to be slightly different to make the characters animate. And it was not only the character animation. Again, they had to paint in the shadows, they had to paint in the lighting, they had to paint in other cartoon characters in the background. And it just absolutely staggers me how much detail and painstaking detail was gone into with this. I mean, one of the joys of watching the film for me is actually pausing the video and see, oh look, you can see the 7 dwarfs are in the back
Yeah.
of that scene, only for a split second, but they had that vision that they wanted to try and include within the film somewhere pretty much every famous cartoon character there's ever been. And it's when you look at it from that point of view, it's unbelievably detailed.
Yeah, there's the same sense of wonder and enjoyment than when you first see Ready Player One. And you kind of can't quite believe, all this reference to your childhood and indeed, when you watch. But I think what was lovely as well, I mean, this is, if I'm not mistaken, Roger, a Disney production with a few other studios. But they also went, and I think that's one of the reasons why perhaps nowadays it's harder. They had this ability to bring, cartoon characters from other studios, from Tex Avery to, a few others, Looney Tunes, obviously, and Merry Melodies. So they could work in collaboration with other studios and other kind of IP centers, which I think would be much harder nowadays.
Yeah, and again, maybe that's why the movie was just so fabulous. I mean, obviously Roger Rabbit himself was a completely new creation, and you can find articles on the internet to see that Roger Rabbit was almost an amalgamation of various things from other famous people, like the baggy trousers and the bow tie. You can find people who they try to emulate there. But yeah, getting Donald Duck and Daffy Duck in the same film, Warner Brothers and Disney, as you've said, it just made it so special. Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse side by side, but in character and the same voice actors and all of that.
And I just love the whole concept of they live in Toontown, which is almost like a ghetto. They're being exploited, by the producers, and so on and so forth. And what was interesting for me, I would argue that one, the pleasure watching this film is multi-leveled. Obviously, there's adult humor as well as kids humor, and maybe was the first one to do it properly. But most of those characters, most of those cartoon characters, you and I would have seen them on the small screen up to that point. And for the first time ever, potentially, we saw them on the big screen in the context of a motion picture. But we must also spend a moment to really, really thank, and congratulate the actors who had to act with nothing. And then, of course, the cartoon characters were added later. But Bob Hoskins, who's the lead character, Christopher Lloyd, and so on, they had to imagine being amongst all those characters. And then that was superimposed following, as you mentioned, 14 months of hard work.
And one of the articles that I read, Pascal, said that the director was absolutely specific that what would almost make the movie fail was if they got the eye lines wrong. So, it's very, very rare. There's a couple of times within the film where Bob Hoskins isn't quite eye to eye with Roger Rabbit or the characters interacting with, but mainly, you could absolutely believe that it was genuinely acting with a cartoon. But of course, as you say, in real life he was acting to nothing. Maybe there was a stick man or a model or something that he was playing to, but genuinely they had to get those eye lines absolutely and utterly spot on. One of the other things which I read, which I thought was fabulous, was and you said this is a Disney movie, but actually it was put out as a Touchstone movie because I think some of the high-ups at Disney felt that it strayed just a little bit too far into adult humour. And I'm sure, I might be wrong, but I'm sure that one of the lines is that a rabbit in your pocket or are you just pleased to see me? And they obviously felt that it might have tarnished Disney's white image, wholesome image, if they'd have associated themselves. It's a bit of a shame because it was so full of Disney characters.
But again, what you were saying, so you've got, that humor. For me, you're right, three-dimensional. So the actors, or real life actors, move around, and everything moves around them as well. There's a real interaction with the world of Toontown. But also, what I loved about it was it is a complex story, and it's also using all the archetypes of the 1940s noir detective stories. So we've got Bob Hoskins, who plays the character of Eddie Valiant. Of course, he's a hero. Who eventually will be up against Judge Doom. So if you're not sure, he's the bad guy with a name like that, such as this one. And he has all this interaction, but that famous scene, which you see in all the kind of black and white detective stories of the temptress, the seductress, entering the detective kind of crumbling office and giving him a contract where he's in peril. Some elements of Chinatown in this, some elements of, many movies you've seen with Humphrey Bogart and so on. On that subject, of course, when the movie was out, we were all saw for the very first time Jessica Rabbit.
Oh yes, I mean, she was drawn in such a way, wasn't she? I mean, I'm not mean. I'm just drawn this way, but yeah. So many young lads always had a crush on a cartoon character. It's absolutely. But I mean, again, that the animation. I think the scene where she's singing in the bar, the animation of her dress, which was sparkling with glitters, they had to animate every single little light spot from multiple directions. Again, it brings us back to that whole idea of the staggering amount of detail. And I guess that, for content creators like ourselves, You know, we say this about a lot of films, Pascal, but this one has to be almost like at the pinnacle of detail and the pinnacle of painstaking attention to detail. And you know, if you've got that vision and the wherewithal to carry it out, it just shows you what you can achieve.
And I think for me, we didn't know in 1998 that this was, the best almost, and there would be no others to come after, because ultimately you do assume, no matter the genre that you favor when it comes to film, that the next iteration or the next exploration of that theme will be better because of access to more technology, to better ways to produce, and so on and so forth. But actually, whilst there was some close call with things like Space Jam, or you could argue there were some interesting things explored with the Incredibles and so on, I think that nothing has been as good as this one since then.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Pascal. And I'm trying to think back now to the marketing of the film. And, 1988, I was just out of university. I can't really think. I know that there was a lot of hype around the film. I know that the mix of live and cartoon, they really bigged that up. There was a lot of programs in advance on TV showing clips of it. So there was a massive expectation that it was going to be a good film. But any lessons that you think we can draw from this?
Difficult to extract myself from how fun the film was, but yes, let's talk about marketing. So you had obviously the marketing pack, the media pack that was put into motion. What is interesting to observe for me is in and around the release. So we saw this film certainly in the UK was released in the December of 1998, which actually is quite late because it was released in the summer in the US, and actually we had it in October-ish in France. So I'm just perplexed about the UK release being so late, but that makes it for a perfect Christmas movie to go and see with the family. But what was interesting, in addition to the marketing machine, this movie was then mentioned for the technology. So then you had programs on TV and magazines talking about the film from a technology point of view, so reaching, I would argue, an additional new audience. We had a TV series looking into science on French TV called Time X, where they were talking about how incredible achievement of that film. So you're watching a movie about science and technology, and the movie was being mentioned. So the behind the scene, I think, element of the marketing was also very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely right. Remember that. I'm sure it was something like Tomorrow's World, Pascal, or something like that, talking about how they made this film. And then, of course, the DVDs came later, the VHS tape came, the DVDs came. And you know, one of the things that absolutely blew me away when the DVD came out was that, at the beginning of the film, the first 5 minutes of the film is actually a Roger Rabbit cartoon. So it's baby Herman's trying to get the cookies on top of the fridge, and Roger's trying to protect him, and just about every implement within the kitchen either falls on his head or spikes him, or all those cartoon pratfalls and this, that and the other. And of course, after those 5 minutes, you realise that it's actually them filming a cartoon. But on the DVD, there were at least another 3 Roger Rabbit entire cartoons that they had made. Now, I think that those cartoons actually ran in cinemas, almost like extended adverts for the film at the time it was released. And of course, they ended up being fabulous Easter eggs on the and extras on the DVD. But to think that they even went to the extent of creating 3 more 5-6 minute cartoons in addition to the film. Again, incredible attention to detail.
And it reminded me, first time I went to see this at the movies, I was perplexed by the beginning of thinking, hang on a minute, I saw the trailer. They're meant to be real people there as well, because it's quite a lengthy cartoon you see at the very beginning before someone goes, cut, and then suddenly the camera turns to real life environment. I was thinking, this is wrong. I was kind of being quite perplexed by the whole thing. But on that point, just reading about some of the trivia that one can consult on the web about Who Framed Roger Rabbit, not only was it at the time, perhaps still is one of the most expensive, obviously, film production of all time, but one of the longest, but also to be able to thank everybody that was involved in a movie. It had the longest closing credits of all times as well.
That's a new. I didn't know that. That's a fabulous.
Well, just to your point,
piece of
Roger, about trailers have the same name as a film. Just came to me. All those artists who had to create frame by frame images of all the different characters. There was a lot of people involved, as well as obviously the normal crew that we'd expect from a film, a production.
Yeah, you when you think about that army of people painstakingly drawing 24 frames a second, it just absolutely, utterly boggles the mind. One of the best films of all time, and I say this every single time we review a film, Pascal, on Two Geeks and a Marketing podcast, but it is definitely one for us to watch. I don't actually think that I've got the DVD. I think I bought it on VHS originally, and the VHS is obviously long since gone. So it's probably one I'm going to have to either buy the Blu-ray now, and hopefully those 3 shorts will still be on there, or even download a digital copy. But I want to see it again soon in 4K, hopefully, pristine, beautiful. That
would be very interesting. And again, to our viewers and listeners, if you've not seen the film, don't discount it because it was made literally for some of us, a century ago, or last century, should I say. It really is a story well told. It's really quite witty. If you know just enough about the world of cartoons, you're going to get plenty for the eyes and the ears. But I love also the setting of the 1940s Los Angeles and everything that comes with it. It's just a great experience to share with others as well.
Yeah, and it's a film for everybody, Pascal. All ages can enjoy it. It's definitely a film to watch with the family. It's definitely a film to watch on your own. There's elements of romance in it. There's elements of danger. Yeah, good all-round film. But again, that attention to detail for us marketers is the thing that sticks out for me. Oh my goodness, Pascal, another fabulous episode. And I got so excited when I knew that we were going to be talking about Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Listen, everyone, thank you so much for watching the latest episode of Two Geeks and a Marketing podcast, or listening to it if that's the way you like to consume your podcasts. If you've got any questions or any comments about what we've been talking about today, just get in touch with us on the YouTube site or look us up on Twitter. And if you do want to subscribe, we'd be absolutely delighted. You can find the podcast in all the usual places. So really, all that's left to say is thanks for watching and thanks for listening. And until next time, go out there and make sure that your marketing is done right. I was Roger Edwards and he was Pascal Fintoni.